Mangwana ni malelepo fukenjani klekwas dumela vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show that remains your portal into Africa's most potent stories. Later in the show, we will be joined by Talent Gore as she delivers the Zimbabwe report, including a state of disaster with regards to a bus accident in South Africa. Is Zimbabwe facing its first cancellation after rebooting just 10 days ago? And the sad story of the funeral, which will take place today, of the lady and her two daughters who were murdered in the UK. Outside of that, these are some of the stories we're looking at from broader Africa. US makes visa bond program permanent for 50 countries, including 30 in Africa. Harare remains calm amid shutdown call over constitutional changes. MMD warns Chungu detention is hurting Zambia's democratic image. ABUJA Jazz Festival celebrates music's power to connect cultures. And of course, the biggest tournament in the world right now is the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. And what a couple of games we had yesterday. Yes, Morocco and Senegal drawing 0-0. However, the lady in that picture, Ndiaye, saved two penalties back-to-back, which allowed Senegal to at least bow out of the tournament with some pride as Morocco progresses still to the next stage. Algeria got the best of Kenya with a 2-0 win. My name is Ashwin Berry. This is Africa Good Morning. Top stories shortly.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises, from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us, something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative Sport Tourism.
Getting into our top stories, nationals from 50 countries, including 30 in Africa, will be required to pay security deposits of up to $20,000 when applying for certain business and tourist visas under a permanent visa bond program introduced by the United States. The U.S. Department of State confirmed the policy took effect on August 3 and applies to applicants seeking B1 business and B2 tourist visas. Consular officers may require a bond before issuing a visa, with the deposit forfeited if travelers violate the conditions of their stay after entering the United States. The permanent policy expands a pilot program launched in August 2025. During the trial, applicants could be required to pay bonds of up to $5,000, $10,000, or $15,000. Under the new rule, the $5,000 option has been removed, while the $10,000 and $15,000 levels remain alongside a new maximum bond of $20,000. 30 African countries, including Uganda, Ethiopia, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe, are covered. The State Department said the program aims to reduce visa overstays, while immigration observers and tourism advocates argue the higher deposits could discourage legitimate travel. Last week, Harare recorded a quieter day than usual as residents waited to see whether a nationwide shutdown called by opposition groups and civil society activists over constitutional changes would result in protests. Traffic into the city center was noticeably lighter, while police maintained a heavy presence across the capital. Authorities blocked access to a popular park where people often gather, and water cannon trucks were stationed near areas previously used for demonstrations. Some businesses opened while others remained closed as police prepared for possible protests which had been banned. The shutdown followed constitutional amendments approved by Parliament and signed into law in July. The changes moved the next presidential election from 2028 to 2030, extend presidential and parliamentary terms from 5 years to 7, and replace direct presidential elections with a system where the president is elected by Parliament. Critics argue the amendments could extend President Mnangagwa's time in office beyond 2028, while the government says the changes are intended to reduce political tensions and promote stability. Now, Zambia's continued detention of former spy boss and opposition leader Xavier CHUNGU is attracting growing international attention, with the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy warning that the case is affecting the country's democratic reputation. MMD Acting President Gaston Sishilima said Amnesty International's global campaign calling for CHUNGU's release should concern every Zambian, describing the involvement of the human rights organization as significant. CHUNGU has remained in detention for almost 2 months on national security-related charges. He is charged with revealing national secrets after his position as the spy chief. Now, Sishilema said the matter had grown beyond a domestic legal issue and became one of the national and international concern. He stated that prolonged detention of political opponents where questions about due process exist does not strengthen democracy. He also expressed concern over the denial of bail, saying the matter carries wider implications for freedom of expression and political participation. Now we end off our top stories with the creative arts as musicians and jazz enthusiasts gathered at the Transcorp Hilton, Abuja, Nigeria, for the second edition of Jazz Across Continents, an event celebrating jazz as a universal language while recognizing its African roots and enduring role in connecting cultures. The concert featured timeless jazz standards across African rhythms and international musical influences, creating a platform for cultural exchange and artistic expression. Host Vamata de Jazz pianist described jazz as an expression of individual uniqueness that enables people to communicate through sound and music regardless of region, tribe, or race. Artist Ene also highlighted music as a universal language, saying people can connect with it even when they do not understand the lyrics. Although jazz emerged in the United States during the early 20th century, its rhythmic foundations are rooted in African musical traditions carried across the Atlantic through the African diaspora and the slave trade. Now, interestingly, jazz, much like blues, as we mentioned, has got some strong origins in Africa. See, blues has 4 dominant notes, and those notes are the only notes on the marimba, which might be known as kalimba in different cultures, which existed 400 years before the genre. Enjoy the jazz, Nigeria. This is Still Africa. Good morning. After the break, Talent Gore joins us from Harare, Zimbabwe.
is 'n eg Namibiese inisiatief. Ons reis op die hartklop van Afrika en vertel stories van mense en hulle dorpe op verskeie platforms insluitende televisie en sosiale media. Dit is joune, syne, julle en ook almal van hulle aan die ander kant van ons grense sinne. En dit maak ABUJA 'n lekker ding. Kyk ABUJA maande om 18:30 op NTV, oneoftoe.com, as ook op Netwerk Media Hub en NTV Afrikaans se YouTube kanale. Volg ons op Facebook of besoek ons webwerf by abujaafrica.com.
All right, it's time for us to get into the Zimbabwe report with Talent Gore, who is in Harare. And we start off on a rather sad note as Zimbabwe declares a state of disaster after 11 nationals are killed in a bus accident.
Zimbabwe has declared a state of disaster following a crash involving Emunenja bus services in South Africa that killed 11 Zimbabwean nationals traveling home from Cape Town as authorities began arrangements to identify the victims and repatriate their borders. The crash occurred Thursday night on the N1 highway near Tromsburg in South Africa's Free State province. 10 people were initially confirmed dead, but the death toll rose to 11 after a 47-year-old woman died at Pelonomi Tertiary Hospital, where she had been receiving intensive care. In a statement, Zimbabwe's local government and public works minister Daniel Garwe said President Emmerson Mnangagwa declared a state of disaster under Section 27.1 of the Civil Protection Act following the Emunenja Transport Services bus crash. The government said the victims comprised 1 adult male, 5 adult women, and 5 minors. And Minister Garwe said the declaration would enable government to mobilize resources and coordinate assistance for affected families, including repatriating the deceased, assisting survivors, and also providing humanitarian assistance. Most survivors were discharged on Friday after receiving treatment for minor injuries, and they were transported to Zimbabwe on another bus. The Zimbabwean government said that President Mnangagwa had conveyed his condolences to the bereaved families and wished those who were injured a swift recovery.
Now, about 2 weeks ago, Air Zimbabwe was celebrating the resurgence of its flights to London, and about 10 days later, they've suffered their first cancellation.
And now, Air Zimbabwe's newly relaunched Harare London service suffered its first cancellation within 10 days on Friday, dealing an early setback to the national carrier's efforts to win back passengers after an 11-year absence. The 10:40 p.m. departure was cancelled following what staff described to passengers as an issue with one of their crew members. Journalists understand that one of the pilots assigned to the wait list, Airbus A330-300, reported sick, and the airline is currently operating the route using outsourced capacity under an arrangement with Spanish carrier Plus Ultra, which supplies both the aircraft and the crew. With no standby pilot available in Harare, the flight could not depart, and in a statement issued Saturday, Air Zimbabwe said the flight had been postponed due to operational reasons. With the aircraft now positioned in Harare, the airline is hoping to resume normal operations with the next scheduled departure to London. Air Zimbabwe operates 3 weekly flights on the route, departing Harare on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, with return services from London on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So this was the first setback that Air Zimbabwe has faced since it started operating the London to Zimbabwe route and the Harare to London route. So this was the first setback that the airline suffered, and we understand that the airline is being outsourced from Spain. And the whole crew is also Spanish. There are no any Zimbabweans on that flight who work as the crew on that plane. They are all Spanish. So apparently it is being said that one of the pilots was not feeling well on that particular day, and the flight had to be cancelled, and this frustrated passengers who had actually wanted to board that flight to London. And Zimbabweans in general, they are not happy with what happened on Friday, and they are saying that they hope that this will not continue happening, given that they believe and they hope that Air Zimbabwe, and they want Air Zimbabwe to succeed on that London to Harare route, and they hope that this is not what will be happening continuously, in that it was just a one minor setback that affected the airline, and operations will resume normally, and there will not be any cancellations in the future.
All right, Talent. We're going to allow you to close off your broadcast with, which is very sad and unfortunate news, as the bodies of a mother and her two daughters who were murdered in the UK are said to be buried today.
Now, in a rather sad story, a mother and her two daughters who were allegedly murdered by their father in the United Kingdom on July 4 will be laid to rest in Bulawayo today. Well, Bulawayo is Zimbabwe's second biggest city, and the bodies of the three arrived in Zimbabwe in the early hours of Monday aboard an Ethiopian Airways flight after weather-related disruptions in Addis Ababa delayed their arrival from Saturday. Notambo Zandile Chuma, 42, and her daughters Natalie, 15, and Nala, 5, were found dead at their home in Bedford, England, on July 6. An inquest that opened last Tuesday heard they died from head injuries. Notabo's husband, Ndodana Mkhanyisi Chuma, 42, who is also the father of the children, was arrested in Johannesburg, South Africa on July 10. He faces extradition to the United Kingdom, where police intend to charge him with the triple murder of the three. So right now the father is in South Africa, where he is also facing some charges in South Africa, whereby he was found with a gun. So he's being charged with having a fire without a license in South Africa. So right now he is arrested. He is in jail in South Africa, and he will be extradited to the United Kingdom. But the bodies of his family members, which are his wife and his two children, they arrived in Zimbabwe yesterday, and they will be laid to rest today in Bulawayo.
Thank you very much, Talent, for delivering the Zimbabwe report. Of course, there was some harrowing stories in there, but that seems to be the reality that we exist in, and we can all only hope to build a better Africa day by day. This is still Africa Good Morning, and we are going to be closing off the show with some highlights from the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. As we mentioned, there was an electric game last night between Morocco and Senegal, which did end goalless. However, the activity was plentiful, and Algeria got the best of Kenya with a 2-0 win. We will return tomorrow as Rorisang Mokojwe delivers the Botswana report, and as always, we will be bringing you the top stories from across Africa. My name is Ashwin Bedi. From me and the Africa Good Morning team, Sureja Kanaka.
Sounds and marks the arrival of the two teams into the arena. And we are off. Algeria bidding, and bodies as well in the middle. In it comes, it's still not fully clear. Striker goal comes in. Far better place than the one she took against Morocco. She'll step up and hit it well. Oh, that is a screamer from Dafer to give Algeria the lead with just 40 minutes on the clock. Look at the smile Her second goal of the tournament, and what a hit as well. HARARE. Chaka getting herself into trouble, as does the goalkeeper as well, and Algeria have their second. And Lilian HARARE in the Kenyan goal will not want to see that again, but that was pounced upon. It's better laid back, striker goal from Kenya, and that's a really good effort as well. It's the shoulder, not once but twice, and then a striker goal from her as well. Now can they get the shot away? Surely they can. They do, and it's turned around the post by Ungazi to deny Terry. Goes short on this occasion. Balumu swings it in, space in the middle, and Algeria are so close to a third. The real difference, of course, will be who they face as Jireko tries to find the consolation for Kenya, and instead can only find the side netting. Jireko swings it in, up they go at the backstay, but Ungazi gathers. Sad. A clean sheet. There it is, the final whistle blows, and Algeria are celebrating once again, because for the second straight Women's Africa Cup of Nations they have reached.
Top two finish, of course, and by beating Morocco they can secure that, winning by a single goal, while Algeria fails to beat Kenya, or drawing with Morocco along. Throw into Masudi. Masudi's delivery into the penalty box. Oh, it's not a well-directed header. Oh, it's a great save from Aji. A little mistake there. The header was not a good one, and it just allowed Ouzraoui to get a shot in through. Has fallen for Ouzraoui. Comes out. There's Shabak into the penalty box. There's a solid headed clearance, but it's the danger there. It's, well, a total clear. And a ball that goes into the penalty box. The shot goes wide from Shabak. Wow, she can't believe it. Look at this for a delivery. Onside. Oh, it's a pass back. They need to be careful there. And the clearance from Erermishi. Under Masudi again. She'll toe poke the ball there. Ouzraoui. The shot is come in. It's a great save from Aji. And set again here from Kassé. Kassé's delivery. Who's there? Benzema. Long range shot. It's a great effort off the crossbar. Denied by the woodwork. What a shot that was. Wow. An absolute stunner of a volley. Marabet of Valencia. Marabet, she has the second one saved as well. Oh, come on. Extraordinary scenes. Aji and Dai. Danger. Ouzraoui tries to get herself a little bit of space. The shot is gone wide. A bit of space. Chebak puts it out to the right-hand side. Lofted into the penalty area. Masudi! She can't get it. A whistle. Absolutely riveting. And it's a goalless draw. Can you imagine that? All credit to both teams. That was...